Good morning and welcome to our September 2017 customer webinar. Today, Christine Masters, our Director of Product Development, will highlight the most exciting new features and innovations in BLOX CMS, with an emphasis on advances that can boost your revenue, grow your audience, increase your efficiency, and improve your site's speed and security. In the room, we also have Rich Griffin, Product Manager. He'll be talking about some changes to our integrations with Google Tag Manager, and we also have Cherry Wolf, Marketing Specialist at townnews.com, and I'm Aaron Gillette, Marketing Director. The presentation will take about 30 minutes and a Q&A will follow. At any time, you can type a question into the chat box, but we'll hold off on answering them until the end of the show. We've got a packed agenda, so I'm going to hand it over to Christine. Take it away.
Awesome, thank you so much. Yeah, we're really excited about being able to go through all of these different things that we've accomplished in the last couple of months. Some of these are related to our most recent core release, which is the main editorial part of our software. But we have other things that I thought were exciting enough to mention as part of this as well. So we'll go through that quickly. As Aaron mentioned, kind of our 4 areas of goals for this year have been to grow audience, boost revenue, increase efficiency for the newsroom and for the web team, as well as improve speed and security. So all of these different features kind of fall into one of those areas. So first we'll talk a little bit about new ways to grow audience and engagement. The first big one, and this is now available, is a new feature that we're calling cover art. In the article asset editor, you'll now see a new tab called cover art. The thing with cover art is this forms kind of like a new magazine style entry page into an article that has a really nice kind of magazine cover experience. It has some nice animation. It's very mobile friendly, and it serves as kind of a good entry point into the article. A couple of things to note about this. First off, after you upload the photo into the cover art tab, there is a little design panel where you can choose kind of some animations and some different design options. So that's definitely something that I would play with and kind of experiment with. The second thing I will say as you're using this, and this was purposefully created so that, number one, this isn't an asset, so this isn't a child asset that you have to associate to the article. This can be something that you just upload to the file, upload to the article, that could be like a pattern or a gradation or something like that that doesn't stand as a news item on its own. It can be decorative. And that way you can choose a different preview for your front page preview, and it doesn't show up in search or anything like that. So this is like a decorative thing, but it can also be from an asset as well. And again, this is just a mobile-friendly way with some animations and things to kind of introduce the front of an article. At the end of the slides, I'll go over that very quickly just so you can see the UI and give a couple more tips there as well. Another great thing, this is something that we've talked about in more depth in previous webinars, but I just wanted to mention it again because we've had a couple of questions about it. But when you're in the asset editor for an article, you can drag and drop pretty much any element that's related to the article inline in the text. And then once you double click on that little blue box, there's actually some design options in there that you can choose. You can have things left aligned, right aligned, half width. And we also have, especially for long form articles, we also have some things like parallax images, a panorama option, and things like that. We've seen some amazing things that some of our partners have done recently with just great in-depth reporting with awesome art. And one of the things that we're trying to, obviously this is under the engagement panel here, one of the things that we're really trying to look for is, especially on mobile, as readers are scrolling through the article on mobile, every couple of viewports of the mobile device, you should be giving them something to kind of entice them to keep reading. So having a pull quote, having an inline photo, having a video or graphics, any of those things as you're scrolling through the photo helps keep them engaged and helps keep them scrolling down the article. So we've found that looking at features such as cover art and such as the article designer, those elements used properly throughout the article will increase the time spent per page of those articles. So just looking at the analytics, we can see maybe double user session lengths on those types of articles versus a standard article. So really great results that we're seeing there. And if you haven't used this before, definitely play around with it. Even sometimes when you're not doing like a super complicated magazine story, you might find that just, this art is a little too big naturally and it just needs to be half size because maybe the art isn't as strong as you would want and you don't want it to have that kind of a focus on the article. So even if it's not like a main article, it's still something that provides you with a lot of useful tools. Another thing to talk about is that, and this just came out a couple of weeks ago, is a new collection presentation mode called a vertical gallery, which it does basically what it sounds like. It's a vertical gallery of assets. So this is when you create a collection of assets, and obviously you can have multiple asset types in a collection. In this kind of example over here, I'm showing there's photos that are available here, but you can also have videos, you could have stories, etc. And essentially this just makes an asset card out of that asset. And instead of scrolling side to side like the paging gallery does, this actually creates them top to bottom in a vertical gallery so that it's easier to scroll when you're on mobile. One of the things that we did is similar to the paging gallery, which is a new page view for every time the user flips to a new card on the paging gallery when they're flipping to a new page. This also will create a new page for each of the cards as the user scrolls down. And so, in that respect, you'll see the actual URL of the story changes as you're scrolling down through the pages. If somebody wants to say, hey, this is a great photo and share it with a friend, they'll be able to share that specific page number with a friend. And then, like I said, that counts as page views as they're scrolling down the story. In some of our initial testing of this, we're seeing that, again, the engagement on this sticking through the gallery is much more than a paging gallery. We're looking at maybe on a standard paging gallery that has maybe 50 assets on it, most users might get half of the way through. We're seeing the trend with the vertical gallery, they get almost to the end. We're seeing like they're getting to 40 or 45 on those pages. So they're staying much more engaged throughout the article. They're generating more page views as you scroll down. I also wanted to mention that the vertical gallery uses the same ad options as the paging gallery. So if you put in a paging gallery ad and you set an ad interval of, let's say, you can define how many slides it goes through before you see an ad. So let's say 5. It uses the same options for the vertical gallery as well. So, and you can kind of see in this example, there's 4 photos or 4 cards here, and then it shows a lazy loaded ad, and then 4 more, and then it shows a lazy loaded ad. So again, it works really well on mobile, and you can, if you set that up, you can have an ad that is positioned every couple of pages as you go through. So it's a great way to generate additional page views and a great way to generate additional high viewability ad positions. So a couple of ideas to boost revenue. Again, these are new things that have just come out in the last couple of weeks or so. I wanted to mention, and I've mentioned this on a couple of different webinars, but it's a really, really, really important thing that's going on with our industry right now. The advertising industry is really focusing on what is called ad viewability. And essentially what this is that the advertising industry got together and said, we want to know, and the technical capability now exists for them to do this, we wanted to know specifically when an ad was capable of being seen by an end user. And they are generally not wanting to pay or wanting to pay much less for ads that are not capable of being seen, which makes sense. So the idea is they're able to track now that their ad showed up, more than 50% of the ad showed up for more than one continuous second in the viewport of the user. And if it does not show up 50% of the ad for more than 1 second, that's called an unviewed or unviewable ad position. And those positions now, especially in the programmatic world, are having much lower CPMs. So what we're doing at Town News is we've been working for several months on some different techniques and things that we can provide to you that will help you implement strategies to improve your ad viewability. And what we've seen is on a per site basis, if you're able to improve your ad viewability above about 70%, we see CPMs going up. And if a particular position is able to improve its ad viewability above a certain percent, maybe 50% or more, CPMs on that specific position go up. So you're trying to both improve viewability for your entire site to kind of show that you're a premium publisher, as well as to improve viewability for specific locations. So we're trying a bunch of different techniques, and I'll get to a couple of them here in a second, to help you implement strategies to improve viewability. The second big initiative that's happening right now is what's called the Better Ad Standards. And this is a group of different companies who have come together, and they have surveyed more than 25,000 consumers around the internet, I guess. And they showed them a bunch of different advertising techniques, and essentially the users had to vote how much they hated those different techniques, essentially, how disruptive or how annoying that ad position was. And if 50% or more of the users said that that was a really annoying or really disruptive ad technique, then they put that on this list of basically bad ads or bad techniques that they are frowning upon. And if you go to, I think it's betterads.org, I believe. If you search for Better Ad Standards, you'll find it. And they have a list of all the different techniques that are essentially frowned upon. The big thing that has happened, though, is that Google has announced that they will be, in a future version of Google Chrome, they will be enforcing the Better Ad Standards by not loading any ads on any page where they feel that an ad is violating the Better Ad Standards. So if you have if they detect that you have a pop-up on your page, or you have a more than 30% density of ads on your page in a particular page view, or one of all these many other techniques, they will literally block the ads from showing on that entire page view. So if you have one ad that breaks the standards, then no ads will show up on that page. Obviously, this is a big thing that we're concerned about. So we're working with Google and some of our other partners on, finding out more about this, and then, like I said, developing new techniques that you can employ to help make sure that you are following the Better Ad Standards. I will say that, and I've talked to several of you about this already, if you look in the Google Webmaster Tools, there's an area called Web Tools, and it will have a Better Ad Standards report on how they feel your site conforms to these standards. So far, everyone has passed that I've heard of, even if they probably shouldn't have because they have pop-ups or other things. So we're still kind of waiting to see how Google will interpret certain positions and certain techniques. That being said, this is something to definitely pay really close attention to, and something that we are going to be working on a lot here, and again, coming up with these new techniques. So a couple of them to talk about. The first one is something that we released a couple weeks ago called automatic ads. And the idea, there's two different pieces to this that are really important. The first one is that, and we've been getting a lot of feedback, especially on our community forum, things like that, about customers who, number one, on really short stories, so like say 1 or 2 paragraphs, those short stories had too many ads on them. A lot of times you had ads that were stacked together, or you'll have a paragraph and then an ad and then a paragraph and then an ad, and it looks crazy. And obviously, having so much high ad density on the page might trigger some of those better ad standards problems in the future. So that's something that we're really looking at. And then the second problem is that you only have 3 ad positions. So if you have a really long story, one of these really nice long-form articles that you've worked on for weeks, whatever, on those places, they probably could handle more ads in them, especially if you're looking at, on mobile, trying to have a couple of ads maybe every 2 to 3 viewports on mobile. You can have another ad show up, and that's not annoying to the user. So what we've done is we've created a new ad scenario for article pages. And if you go to the URL properties, under advertising, there's a new choice that you can choose for article ad placement. There's a default choice, which is existing technology, existing implementation, and then there's this new automatic ad implementation. With automatic ads, you get the choice of how many paragraphs of text you would like to show between ads. And then after the first 3 fixed positions that will still be there, so you don't have to change anything with your existing fixed positions, after the first 3 fixed positions, then additional automatic ads will start being placed afterwards at an interval of number of paragraphs that you specify. So in playing around with this, to me, a number of about 5 to 8 paragraphs seems to be pretty good, 6 to 8 maybe. And again, you look at that both on desktop and on mobile. And then what you'll see is that for the first 1 to 3 paragraphs, you're just going to get that one ad at the bottom. So you're just going to get the fixed top position ad. And then from X number of paragraphs later, so whatever number you specify, so let's say you specified 8 number of paragraphs later, you're going to get your middle fixed position. 8 paragraphs later, you're going to get the bottom position. And then 8 paragraphs later, you're going to get this new automatic ad. And then that automatic ad is lazy loaded, so it's only loading when it's viewable to the user, so it's a high viewability ad position. And it will continue down the page, essentially loading that ad spot again and again for however many paragraphs that particular article can handle. So that's something that I think it works really well. Again, that is a technique to get new, highly viewable ad positions, and it is a way to fix the problem of too many ads on short stories and then fix the problem of not enough ads on long stories. So definitely try that out. Because of the fact that it's a URL property, you are able to go into a particular section and set it up on that one section to make sure that it works right and make sure that you like the ad intervals before you apply it to your other sections. But again, that's just a great way to make sure you're abiding by the better ad standards and also make sure that those spots have a very high viewability. And that's available now. Another thing that we just came out with is something called a refresh of ads. By default, and this is another URL property that's available in advertising, and I think it's called interval ad refresh. And there's a couple of settings under there. One setting is refresh all ads when possible, and this is essentially existing technology. So we do this currently is when possible, and when a user interacts with something, we're going to refresh the ads. So that's existing technology. Then we have another option in there that is do not refresh ads. So if you were in a situation previously where you didn't like how the ad refresh worked, that's something that you would be able to turn off using that option. And then the third one is refreshing ads when possible with user interaction when it's in the viewport. So one great thing that this new option does is it only refreshes the ads that are in the viewport. One negative thing about refreshing ads with existing technology is when you have an ad refresh, you are sometimes, depending on how you set it up, you are sometimes refreshing an ad that is outside of the viewport of the user. All that means is that you're adding an additional non-viewable ad to your site. So that's not a good thing. Obviously, more ad positions are good and more ads are good, but more non-viewable ads when you're under this model of the viewability is not good. So this new option makes sure that the ad is in the viewport of the user when it's refreshed, which means that all of the refreshed ads are 100% or near 100% viewable. And then number two, it will refresh ads based on a user interacting with the page through scrolling. So previously they had to be flipping through a gallery, or they had to be using paging or one of these other things that trigger ad refreshes. With this new model, it will refresh the ad if they're scrolling down the page. So there is a limit. I think it's 5 seconds, which actually doesn't sound very long, but it does feel like a long time when you're actually reading the article. And it only does it when it's in the page, so again, it's high viewability. So this is something that just came out for our standard fixed positions. We are adding this in the future to positions such as the infinity scroll positions or the automatic ad positions. But for now, this will work on your fixed and block positions. But this is definitely another technique to try out. Again, you can try it out on a URL and see what you think about it, see what you think, and then let us know your feedback on, we've already got a couple tweaks that we're planning to make to this, but let us know your feedback on how that works for you. Okay, so a couple of things about increasing efficiency. This is one that we've heard a lot of great feedback about already. When you have, what we're doing now is we're doing on a heartbeat, so on a per couple of seconds check. We check to see if there is anything on the story or any kind of asset that you're working on that is different from what's being stored locally, and then we store locally, essentially in your browser on your particular computer, a copy of that asset. This will store any kind of asset, so photos, things like that. You don't even have to have a title yet, so there's been a couple times where I created a new asset, I typed some stuff, and then got distracted and my computer crashed, whatever. And when I came back and it's like, no title, and here's this thing that you were working on. And I'm like, great, I don't have to do that again, obviously. When this happens, again, it's storing this locally, so it's not actually talking to our server. So if your internet goes down or something like that, we're still able to save as much as we can of your work. And these don't count as revisions to the actual article itself or the asset itself. So if you have some situation where you are tracking the revisions, or you don't want to have all of the revisions blown out with a whole bunch of autosaves. So this is something where it's saving locally. If you choose, when you see this panel come up, you can choose to select them and either restore them, which will basically pop up the panel and you can review it, and you'll be able to store it there. You can double click on it to read it. Or you can click on discard, and then that saved version goes away. So that's, again, a great way to, if there's a internet problem or a browser problem, you're able to save your work.
Just a quick question that came in about the autosave feature. They know that when you save by clicking the save button, that means that those changes are actually published if the item is published. They're wondering if the autosave feature is going to publish your changes to the web.
Oh, good question.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you're just saving it, it doesn't actually save the article to the server or publish it live until you click save, and you're restoring it and saving it.
So the autosave is
right.
just storing it on your machine.
Yeah, great question. Great question. And like I said, this doesn't impact the revision history. So the next one For those of you using our email reach product, something that we've gotten a lot of requests for is, and I'll give you the specific use case, if they want it so that whenever they have breaking news, the breaking news is automatically sent out to the breaking news email list. So this is something that we've been able to add into the email reach product. There's essentially a new panel called automatic alerts, and it gives you a couple of options for how to set that up. You can set it up with a particular section, and then plus a flag that is going with that. It can be the breaking news flag or some other flag. And you can also trigger it based on keywords. There has to be kind of some combination of those, so it's not like, we would prefer that you don't send out every single sports article that you do to the list, obviously. So it'll be something like, the news section plus the breaking news flag, or the sports section plus the hot flag, something like that. And then that way, the newsroom, when they're creating those articles and they're ready to be published online, when you save that article with that combination of section and flags and keywords, it will automatically send out the newsletter to that group. One thing that I'll mention is that we have been requested that if there is an update to an article that was previously sent, that in some cases you want that to be sent again to give that same list an update of additional information that has happened to that article. We didn't want that to happen on every single save, because that obviously you might not be aware of it going out, and it will, you don't want to spam people with a bunch of different saves. So the way we've implemented that is that if you're using the important update feature, which is a setting that you can set in your asset manager, you turn on important updates, and then if you're using this, anytime you have an important update, it will send that article again with your new updates. So again, a really great way to improve efficiency and get those emails for breaking news and things like that out more quickly. Another thing that we've added, you might have noticed a new panel called Google Settings in your settings panel. This is for Google Tag Manager and Analytics, and I'll let Rich talk for just a second about that.
All right, great. Thanks, Christine. Yeah, this is the culmination of an effort for us to strategically switch to or offering the option to use Google Tag Manager. We have a lot of partners with varying data needs, and we're leveraging Google Tag Manager's data layer to make information available to them to use however they want. With this power, there is a learning curve, so we have some recommended reading on our setup documentation and our help site. You can search for Google Tag Manager on your help site, and you'll find that in one of the top 2 results. There as well, there will be the current data layer elements that are supported. That'll be an ongoing effort to continue to add more and more information to this. I do plan on doing a webinar here in the coming months as some more features are rolled out into the data layer. For example, we've got some metering workflow elements and some enhanced e-commerce elements for subscription product that are coming out very soon for that as well. And so as far as setting that up, I would want to warn that if you do switch to add your GTM container ID to your Google Tag Manager ID in the Google panel, that you are going to be responsible for elements like that are currently being fired directly to Google Analytics, such as virtual page view, metering events, and these types of things. Those will need to be transferred through Google Tag Manager to your Google Analytics account. So that's why I highly recommend going through some of the documentation that we recommended for Google Tag Manager and familiarizing yourself with that, or your IT staff with that, so that you make sure all that stuff is there when you do switch. So like I said, we're going to be doing a webinar upcoming, and I'll have a lot more information about that. We'll be able to have different elements that you'll be able to import directly into your containers to set up standard functionality, all that type of thing. So look forward to that, and I will have more information for you soon.
Awesome. And just kind of to reiterate one important thing, you did say this, but just to say it yet again. If you implement Google Tag Manager, we assume that you're going to be implementing Universal Analytics through Google Tag Manager. So if you set up Google Tag Manager, we remove all analytics code from your pages and only have the Google Tag Manager code. And so you have to set up Google Analytics inside Google Tag Manager. And it's very easy, and they kind of, you flow through, they step you through that when you're setting up Google Tag Manager. But that's a really important thing, because I don't want someone coming to us saying, you know, hey, what happened to all those analytics that you were supposed to have? So just make sure that you set that up when you're in switching to GTM.
And we have a link to a doc in GTM that specifically talks about how to do that and the need for that.
Yeah, so look at our help site first before stepping into this. But that being said, the important thing to note on this webinar is that doing this stuff is difficult to do, and we're trying to, we really like how it works. It's much easier overall to keep up to date over time. So we're, you know, stepping into kind of really putting a lot of emphasis into GTM in general. But it's definitely something to read up on and look at the docs on our help site. So a couple really quick things here. I won't go into this too much in depth because I'm running out of time, but we have been working very hard the last year or so on what's called time to interact improvements, which is not when the page downloads, like the full download of the page, but rather the point of time when a page loads that the user can start interacting with the page. Doing a lot of surveys and work with users, Google has determined that this is probably the most important metric, not page speed, but rather how long it takes before the user is able to interact with the page. Essentially, as far as the user is concerned, that's how long it takes for the page to download. So you want to try to get this time to interact as small as possible so that the user can start interacting with the page as quickly as possible so they don't get detracted and leave the page. So we've been doing a lot of optimizations in terms of how our pages are built and how they're served to try to improve this time. We've done, and I won't go through all of these, but we've done preload hinting, which it loads pages ahead of time before the page is even downloaded. It pre-connects to our CDN. We've optimized CSS to reduce reflow of the browser. There's a bunch of stuff that we've done. And I am really happy to look at some of the numbers in Google Analytics globally for all of our partners that we have reduced the page, or the time to interact time by 18% over the last year. So I'm really happy about that. At the same time, the size of pages has actually increased over time. So this is actually some of these technical things that we've done on the server level have offset a lot of that and has really improved time. So I'm very proud of the work that we've done in that area. The other thing to mention is HTTP2. This is a new protocol that is now available and supported by all modern browsers. We do this automatically now with all files that are loaded on our CDN. They are now secure in HTTP2, and they are now loaded through Secure and HTTP2, and they're faster because of the combination of those techniques. Literally, it used to be that, you know, especially the front-end kind of development crowd on the phone will understand this, that we used to try to be collapsing files together and trying to optimize files into one because you wanted to reduce latency when you're hitting those servers. With a new thing called multiplexing, which is available with HTTP2, it can actually download multiple files at once. So now we're actually looking at ways to possibly split up files and make them more optimized, given the fact that they can all be downloaded at the same time. So that's really great. That is available now. Again, we've seen minor speed improvements across the page because of that technique, and I think it's really helpful. I will take 1 second to mention that we're probably going to have a blog post or something coming up about this, but we are watching very closely some changes Google is making in terms of security. In the next couple of months, they're going to do another update where whenever a user interacts with a form on your website, any form element, any text input field, including, for example, the weather, that if that is not on a secure page, they're going to put a big thing at the top of the page that says page not secure. And I think that that's going to be possibly off-putting to some end users. So again, just really emphasize, if you're not on a secure SSL or HTTPS site right now, we have the capability of doing this. Go to our help site and just search for secure mode. I have a really long, boring page talking about how to set this up. It's something that's available now, and I do think that essentially this year, Google's going to force everybody to do this. So it is really important. And lastly, oh, this is what I was just talking about. We do have this option for the HTTPS. We actually, and I do want to mention this also, I had somebody talking to me about that buying the secure version of your website is very expensive, and you actually have to buy a security a certificate for it, etc. We actually worked with another company that is providing certificates as part of a protocol, and it's free. So we've built an API to this place called Let's Encrypt that does certificates, and you don't actually, on our platform, you don't have to go buy a secure certificate for your site. It is free. We have integrated that for you. So I think that's a really big benefit, and that might have been something that we weren't clear about in the beginning. So that being said, search on the help site for secure mode. Look at what you need to do to switch your site over to secure mode. And again, I would try to do that in the next couple of months if you haven't done it already. So that being said, I just wanted to spend 2 minutes here, and I know I'm a little bit over, 2 minutes here showing a couple of examples of our, all the stuff I talked about in a live view here really quickly. Just very quickly to show you, this is essentially what the Restore Assets panel looks like. If you haven't seen this before and you want to mimic it, essentially I just opened up several assets and then refreshed my whole browser. It'll say something like, depending on how if you refresh the application, for example, if it can catch it, it might give you a warning saying that you have unsaved work, etc. But if you're refreshing the whole browser, or if you're rebooting the computer, it doesn't have an opportunity to kind of catch that action. And then what happens is when you log back in, it'll say that you have these unsaved things. And then you can go through and examine them or click on restore or discard. In regards to the cover art, so this is an article asset that I'm working on here. If you'll see this new tab over here called cover art. And then when you get to the cover art tab, you first have to upload the photo, and then after you upload the photo, you're given the design options. So the design options button isn't on there unless you've uploaded a photo. But once you upload the photo, there's a bunch of different options that you're available to use on how to design your cover art page. You can, for example, choose to have the headlines, like there's a headline element. You can make that left, centered, or right. You can make it top, middle, or bottom. And these obviously, especially the left and right alignment, mostly matter on desktop, not really on mobile. You have the choice of having a light or dark headline color. And then in terms of the background box, you can have the text in the box style, which is putting a background just behind the text itself, or the whole element is in a box or nothing. And then you have these really fun, I might have got a little bit overboard on some of these effects. It's just like stuff that you can do very easily with CSS, so it's kind of fun. But we have the option of having a parallax technique on that cover photo, a Ken Burns effect, which is, you might be familiar with the famous documentary photographer Ken Burns, where he kind of, made famous this technique where you take a photo and you very slowly pan across it so it looks more like a video or some kind of motion. It's very effective and it looks really nice. And then we also have some CSS effects like blur, grayscale, a sepia tone, and then a desaturate that kind of just makes it a little bit like a black and white photo. And all of those are just CSS techniques that are applied to the photo. It doesn't change the photo at all. And it's just a fun thing that you can kind of experiment with. But I'll show you a couple of versions here of cover art. And you see, if you watch how these load, that it's slowly kind of moving across the page. We've got a couple other animations here as the page loads. and then the user just kind of scrolls down to read the actual article. In this case, again, this is showing the text in the background box here. You see that the line kind of fades over here, and then we have a button that helps them scroll down more easily. This is a couple examples on mobile. Again, you can see how the line kind of scrolls out, and then we have the just scrolling down to read the article. And I'll show like one more here. So really great. And again, this isn't an asset that's on the photo or on the article, so it doesn't have to be repeated again down the page. And it does not show up as a preview to the article. So if you want it as a preview, you can add it as the teaser image, or you can obviously upload an asset to it as well. One more thing to mention very quickly is the vertical gallery. This is an example. Galveston News had some really amazing photographs of Hurricane Harvey that came out, and they have this example of some of their best photos in the vertical presentation mode. And then again, you can kind of see just scrolling down. These are lazy loaded as they go down the page, so it's very fast loading. Because of the fact that you just kind of scroll down the pictures very easily, it works great on mobile. And then again, you can have ads in between them at any kind of interval that you're looking at. And then notice again at the top that it's numbering the page views as you're going down the page, so that you're able to, change them. It changes the URL as you're scrolling down the page so that they can share those, and it counts as additional page views. So great engagement and feedback that we've gotten with these changes so far. So that's it. Sorry, I talked a little too much, but
well, we have
this is a lot.
We have
stuff.
a lot to share.
Yeah,
So that's a very good thing.
A lot
but
of
we
stuff.
also have a lot of questions.
Okay, sounds good.
So we can start working through those. First question: with the cover art, is there a way to make the cover art image the preview image without needing to attach the image as a child asset? I think you just covered that.
So I did mention that just really quickly again. Again, this is meant to be kind of a graphical thing. If you want to have it as the preview image also, you can upload it as a teaser. So that's kind of what I did in this thing. I just uploaded the exact same photo as a teaser. You can choose to, so if you're in cover art, let's say you had a photo and you wanted that photo to be a child on the asset as well, and it's going to be, let's say, after the 4th paragraph or whatever. But you also wanted it to be the cover art. You could come in here and say, copy the cover art from another asset. And then you could go find that photo that is the child, and then you're essentially taking the image from that asset and then adding it as a cover art. And then if you change it or whatever, they're not connected at that point, but this is just like borrowing from that asset. And then you would also have that asset placed in line. And then at that point, the asset would be the preview image, not the cover art. They just happen to be the same. Hopefully that made sense. But play around with it and you'll see kind of what I'm talking about. But the main thing to note is that, and again, we did this on purpose, but it is a little confusing when you upload the cover art that it's not the teaser, and you will probably want to have a preview image on it. So you can either add child assets or use the teaser preview image.
Okay.
Hopefully that makes sense.
3 separate folks asked in some way or another when Article Designer will be added to TCMS.
That's great. We actually have that. The Article Designer features I believe they're on the existing latest version right now, and I believe it's in alpha right now. So it should be available in the next couple of weeks in terms of the Article Designer.
And I should have said, when will they be added to BLOX Total CMS?
Right.
Just to be
sorry.
clear.
Did
Yeah.
I say that?
I said TCMS. Just to be
sorry.
clear,
Yeah.
BLOX Total CMS.
Yeah, we have asked that a lot. And if you're not familiar, purposefully, we have delays in when a software version, it will go to hosted first, and then after usually a couple of months, then it goes to our appliance version. So purposefully, they fall behind, so there's more time for testing and integration of the appliances. So they're usually a little bit behind in terms of when you're going to get these new features. So you'll see Article Designer in the very next version, and then cover art will be a couple versions down the road from that as well. And obviously you can go to, after you've pushed it through the system, you can go to the hosted version and add a cover art as well.
Can you have a vertical gallery on mobile but keep the asset as a standard gallery on the desktop?
That is not available now, but we can talk about that as a change, possibly, like a combo gallery or something. That is something we could look at.
We are not currently breaking up article text with ads yet, and are focusing on reader subscription instead. Will a few stacked ads be permitted right below mobile articles and in the top rail on desktops, as well as on the home page?
So, I guess the short answer is who knows. I don't think we necessarily know those details yet. I will say that any kind of stacked ads, we believe, and again, we don't really know, but we believe that that is against the spirit of the Better Ad Standards. That we think that having an ad density of 30%, which is one of the numbers that they kind of throw out there, will be considered to be against the Better Ad Standards, meaning if you have several stacked ads in your right rail and then those show up on mobile and all of several mobile viewports are ads, that could be construed as against the Better Ad Standards. That being said, I don't really know how easy it will be for them to detect and how soon they will flag that as a violation. I do know that we specifically talked to Google about this, and I can tell you that their review process right now is partly automated and also partly done by humans looking at it. So there is where they are going through pages as, you know, they have a staff of people that are doing these, and if they look at your site and they feel that it is against Better Ad Standards, they might flag that particular page that they looked at as against Better Ad Standards, and then you would have to fix it and have it reviewed before ads will show up in Chrome, essentially. And I can also tell you that even if your site passed an initial review, at any point in time, they can do another review and flag either an individual page or your site. So, but again, how soon those types of techniques get flagged, we really don't know yet. But that being said, I would start thinking about ways to have ads mixed in with content in more ways. If you have ads that are in the right rail, try to put, you know, story elements, content elements between them. And if we have something called smart ad setting, where on mobile, your right rail ads go inside of the article only in mobile view. So on the right hand, so when you're on desktop, they're on the right hand side, and when you're on mobile, they're integrated with story. That's something that we would recommend, again, to get rid of the stacked ads at the bottom of the article. The other thing too is that those ads that are below the article on mobile probably have very low viewability rates. So that's another thing to think about as you're starting to think about programmatic advertising. Obviously, local advertisers probably don't care that much about viewability yet. They probably will in the next couple of years. But programmatic, it's a really big deal right now.
How will these new ad positions work with DFP ads?
Yes, they are. Everything works with DFP. So we've done a lot of our primary testing with DFP. And most of the techniques also work with Ad Manager. So there's a couple of things that, if you look at our documentation, there might be a couple of things that don't work in a specific position or in a specific area. We will tell you that in the documentation. Either some of these are on purpose. For example, a pop-up ad doesn't refresh because that would be horrible. Don't get any ideas. And wallpaper ads don't refresh because, again, that would be bad. But something that's a nice ad that's showing up on the side of the page as they're scrolling down, those are prime areas to refresh, and it's actually helpful and interesting to the user. So we're really trying to, focus on improving those experiences for the user to not, obviously violate the Better Ad Standards, and just kind of improve that experience so you get better viewability and better reaction from users.
Can you say again what happens within an article, within article ad locations and automatic ads on very short articles?
So very short articles, what we do is essentially the first ad position shows up after 3 paragraphs. So on a long story, it shows after 3 paragraphs, and on a short story, it shows up after 3 paragraphs. So with using the automatic ad policy or layout, if you have only 1 paragraph, you're just going to have 1 ad. So the other 2 positions, if you have them filled, won't actually display on that page. If you have 2 paragraphs, we're just going to show the 1 ad. If you have 3, we're just going to show the 1 ad. And then if you have, depending on how many interval you set up, until the next interval, you won't get that second ad. Hopefully that makes sense. Again, look in documentation. It's a lot of math, but it's in the docs for this.
Here's a comment. Autosave can't come to Total CMS fast enough. We're really looking forward to it here.
Yes. It was developed specifically for Total CMS, so we are also very much looking forward to that there.
Will autosave be applied to events eventually?
That's a good question. I can ask about that. It is only editorial right now, but we can definitely. That's a good question for the future requests.
Regarding automatic ads for articles, how does that work when the story has multiple editorial assets, graphics, photos, videos, info boxes, pull quotes, etc.?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So it will put the ad in between the block level elements within the story. So if you have a sub, like a H2 or something like that, a subtitle inside of the article, that also will count essentially as a paragraph. So these are block level elements inside of the article. So I can clarify that first. But secondly, it will attempt to intersperse them between whatever elements you have on the page. Now, the main thing to note, obviously, that's important there is that using the article designer, you can have things that are floated left and floated right, and with that might interact with an ad on desktop where you might get a weird experience where the image is floated to the left and then an ad is kind of weirdly up against it. So in those cases that you do have problems with things that are floated left or right. And I would just say, obviously that doesn't happen on mobile because on mobile things can't be floated left or right, so that's not a mobile problem. So just make sure that if you have the automatic ads or essentially any ads inside of your article, that you're previewing that live on desktop so that you can make sure that there aren't any kind of weird interactions between the ads and the photos. That's something that for a couple of years here, we very deliberately did not have anything floated left or right for that specific reason. But we had so many requests from people wanting to do this that we kind of just put it out there and said, well, just please make sure to look at that to make sure that there's no weird interactions between them. And if there is, you can move the article or move the photo a little bit up a couple paragraphs or a little bit down so that you don't have the interaction with the ad. So again, something to preview.
Thanks. Another nice comment. Holy cow, that's great. Auto-breaking news email alerts will be amazing. Yes,
that's very exciting. If you haven't, played with that yet, that is like I said, a new feature that we've had in the past couple of weeks. Think about again how to implement that within your newsroom. What are the best flags to use and the best setup to do, and then make sure obviously you're telling your newsroom that clicking on that flag will send out, if it's a published article and it is set to go live and you click on that flag and hit save, it will send out that email. So it's a training thing internally as well, but it's very helpful and it makes things much more efficient for the newsroom.
Another question about that regarding automatic email alerts. If we send out an email alert based on an AP news story, the alert goes out automatically anytime the AP updates its original story. Readers find that bothersome when the update is not significant. Is that addressed via automatic email alerts? If you turn on, so yes, it won't send out another one unless you turn on the important updates feature and you save it actually as important updates. Since I'm on this page, I'll show you that really quickly here. If you so in order to get it to trigger, you'd have to manually go in and say this is an
correct.
important update.
Correct. Okay. So essentially, important updates is a feature. We've had this for a while, but you can essentially say manually declare important updates. And once you turn that on, what it gives you is when you're saving the article, you have this choice to say, this is an important update. If you save an article and you don't say that it's important, it doesn't change your updated time on RSS feeds or in the page itself. So that's like if you just changed a typo or something like that, you don't want to call it like, say that it was updated. But in this case, if you turn this on, you can choose to flag when something is specifically important, and then that'll update your updated time, and it will send out another email alert if you have the auto updates, and that article will trigger it.
One thing to note there is that initially when this was released, we did have a bug where it wasn't honoring the important update, and it was sending it out every time. So if you were experiencing that initially after release, that's all been taken care of, and it should only send when it's an important update now.
Yep.
Okay, another question about the auto email. Where do they go to find the auto email setting?
Yes, that's a great question. So this is part of our email reach product. And if you are an email reach customer, you can go into community and then email reach. And then this is essentially, you choose kind of the list that you would like this to be related to. And I guess I don't have anything here. Let me go. Well, anyway, you click on the list that you'd like to be related to, and you click on new. And then there's two options there. There's the, you can set up a new campaign, which is your standard automated list that goes out at 7 o'clock in the morning every day, or whatever interval or whatever schedule you choose. Or you can have this new automated option where it's sent out based on the combination of parameters that you establish in that particular thing. And you can have multiple ones. You can have a weekend sports one that sends out just when you finalize the sports scores on Friday nights, etc., or like I said, a breaking news one, etc. So there's a lot of stuff that you can do with that. I will say that if you do not currently have our email reach product, it's actually really inexpensive, and we're actually doing a lot of updates on it currently. So it's a great way to add more. It's another way to reach your users and have outreach to the users. We see great examples of people coming back to the site to read the articles when they get those emails. We were just doing a couple, I guess it was last month when we did the webinar about statistics. I was very kind of shocked that one of the number one ways that you get additional traffic back to your site, social is a big deal, but email is number 2. So if you don't currently have an email product set up, this is a really great time to do it.
Regarding the cover art, can they change the text font to a serif font from the current sans serif?
That's a good question. So you can't do it through the software yet. We actually talked about that as a future feature, that we might have like maybe a serif option and then a sans serif and then maybe a funky option, I don't know. But that being said, you can do CSS on your particular site if you wanted to change that either on a per section basis or throughout your entire site. That is something that you can hit with CSS and then change through that way. So, but that is something that we have talked about as a future request to be able to change the font also.
And if you need assistance with that, I'm sure our customer support can help out.
Absolutely, yep.
Is cover art available only in BLOX CMS, or is it also available in BLOX Total CMS?
Yes, good question. It will be available in a couple of months on the Total CMS product. It's available and hosted today, but Total CMS, it will take a couple months to reach that platform.
Okay. Do we have an estimated date when the CNN partner videos will be HTTPS compliant? That's
a great question. We're actually working with them on that right now. Just this week even, we got some new updates from them on, they were able to fix things that they needed to on their side to be HTTP compliant, and we're actually working with them right now on implementing that. So it'll probably be another month or so for that to be available through our syndication product. But if you are working with CNN separately, they do have that available now. And their technology supports that now. So we're working on integrating that as well.
When you showed us a preview of the cover art, how did you get a line to display in between the headline and the cut line in the title of the article?
Okay, that's a great question. So just very quickly, let me see if I can find a couple of examples here. I actually was asked by, if you look at the documentation for cover art on our help site, I included like a little picture that shows you what all the elements on this page are. But just very quickly, this right here is the kicker. So on the article asset, when you, I think it's under the other tab, there's a little area there where there's some kind of alternative headline types that work along with the standard headline. So you'll have the kicker that's available at the top. This is the hammer headline. So if you want these really big, dominant headlines that are available and that I show on a lot of these, I think it looks the best with the hammer headline. But that's the hammer. The way we implemented the hammer, it actually automatically sizes as needed to the space given. So if you have a really long hammer headline, a lot of times it makes the font actually smaller, and then it'll still be all caps, but you'll have like a smaller headline. But if you want that really big one, you have to have a short word.
So you mean it's going to keep it on one line? It's not going to wrap?
It will wrap at a certain point.
Okay.
It has a maximum size and a minimum size. But if you hit the minimum size and it still doesn't break, then it will break to another line. But it's like, 24 pixels or something, so it's pretty small. To get this really big thing, you need to have a short word and the hammer headline. And you can obviously play with that and see what that does. But then this is the actual headline. I guess I can't do that there. This is the actual headline, How Germany Gained Territory, of the article. And so you have to have something above and something below. So you have to have the headline and then one of these types of specialty headlines, and then you're going to get the little line between them. Hopefully that makes sense. That was kind of a long explanation, but
use the hand.
Yes. So you have to have something to separate them. I will also say that there's also a subhead headline that will also show up down here as well. So most of the time, probably having every single one of them is too much. But you can kind of experiment with that and play around, and you'll see how those work together.
Okay. Smart ads only apply to fixed ad blocks. We're using custom DFP blocks that all fall to the bottom of the home page and other pages. When reduced to mobile, is there a fix for this?
What I would do is we can show ad blocks based on viewport. So what I would do is either have fixed ads. We also have utility regions that are available inside the story as well. So you can have ads that only show up on mobile and either put those in line or on the right rail, and then take your right rail block ads and make those only show up on desktop. So using the CSS visibility classes and additional blocks either in the article or on the right rail, you could kind of hopefully do something closer to what you're wanting by specializing your block layout based on mobile or desktop. Hopefully that makes sense. Send in a ticket to customer support and we can help you with that if you want additional details.
Do automatic ads only work with the fixed in-article ad positions?
So the automatic ads is a new ad position. But you have to have, so whatever you have now in terms of your fixed positions will happen first, and then after that, then you have the automatic ads start, and it's basically you have to define the block that is used for that position, and then you say, essentially, this is the block that I want to use. It can be DFP or it can be Ad Manager, and then it will use that block inside of the iframe that is inserted as you scroll down the page.
Want to confirm again on security aspect of forms, such as subscriber and ad submission. If those forms leave the townnews.com platform, they will be flagged as non-secure?
So, let me see I don't know if I can show an example of this, but essentially, anytime a user, so like, where's weather? So like right here, there is an area where you can choose in the text box. So this is essentially a text box on the page, right? So this text box, now, in the future, when Google releases, I think it's like Chrome 62, I believe, something like that. When Google releases this future Chrome version, anytime on any page where an end user is interacting with a text box, so it could be an email sign up, it could be changing the zip code on the weather, any place on the page where you interact with a text box, if your page is not secure, so in this case, my site is HTTPS right now, so my site will be fine, and it won't give you any security warnings. But if your site is HTTP and the user goes to any text box on your site, it will come up with a little thing that says not secure right here. That's the next phase, as well as they're actually implementing the same thing in incognito mode. If your site is not HTTPS right now and a user goes to your site in incognito mode, it'll start saying not secure with the future Chrome version. And then somewhere probably, we think in 2018, the beginning of 2018, all Chrome on all non-secure sites will say not secure, and they're going to make it red. Sounds like.
Well, luckily,
so,
it's pretty easy
yeah,
to switch over to secure
yes.
mode, and we've got a mode where you can preview it. And
yes, we have a whole kind of step-by-step plan for how you can do this. The main thing is to make sure that your partners and ad widgets and analytics and stuff like that are secure, and then it's just literally a one check box that you say, I want to go secure, and then BLOX takes care of all of that for you. So as long as you get your third-party stuff all set up for secure, then you just have a one-step button to switch the whole site to secure, and then you're good. But again, just to emphasize, this is something that Google's really pressuring publishers to do as soon as possible.
Can you say again how we can limit how many in-article ads show up in mobile articles that are really short?
I think I understood that question. I'll just show you very quickly here what the new advertising options are. So again, you're in the block editor, and then you go to the page customizations area for your site, and this is on Flex only, obviously. And then you go to the advertising area. And as you can see, we've got a whole bunch of advertising options that we've been working on over the last couple of years here. But so essentially, the new article page view is we have this new option called Ads on Article Pages. And right now, there's two choices: default, which is current implementation, and then this new automatic ad placement option, which allows you to have additional ad spots on longer ads and fewer ad spots or less obnoxious ad spots on shorter articles. And then after that, this is the setting where you would say the number of paragraphs between the automatic ads, and then you can choose to have, I would recommend probably 6, 7, or 8 or so to be the choice on that. And then that'll show you the 3 fixed positions first, and then the automatic ads every X number of paragraphs after that. 4 is too many. I tried 4, it is obnoxious. So hopefully, like I said, 6 to 8 is probably a good number.
A follow-up, do those have to be fixed ad positions, or can they be custom blocks?
I'm not 100% sure how to answer that. I will say, in terms of the first three ads that are there, we're going to assume that those are fixed positions, and then those will show up every X number of paragraphs, however many you establish there. If you're using like utility regions or custom macros for that, it kind of depends on how that was implemented. So I don't know 100% how to answer that, but I will say, again, number one, contact our customer support and they can help you implement this if you have questions like that in terms of how your current ads are set up. And number two, it is available on a URL basis, so you can go to a test URL and then experiment on a test URL how these show up, and then let us know if you have questions on how that is implemented, or maybe how to change things so that it works better with your existing ad spots.
Okay, that's all for the questions. If you want to bring up the presentation one last time here.
Let's see.
So just thank you to everyone for such a great session. Lots of excellent questions, and thanks Christine and Rich for walking us through all those awesome new features. We have lots of ways to stay connected. Several times you've mentioned the help site and the documentation site, and that is at help.bloxcms.com.
And thank you for everyone who participates in that. We get really great questions. We have a lot of people. I was just talking to somebody the other day and giving them a big thank you for how many times she answers questions on the site. We have so many good people that are actually giving recommendations and answering questions and showing examples, and it's a really helpful, great community we have going there.
I believe you're referring to the partner community, the community site.
Yes, sorry. I'm sorry. I was so excited to say that, but yeah, it's
that's
great.
At community.townnews.com, and that is a great resource. You mentioned several times getting a hold of our CS team, and you can call them anytime at 800-293-9576 or support.townnews.com. You can sign up for status updates at townnews.status.io. There you'll get updates on system status, software status, stuff like that. And you can follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. You can also sign up. We have a variety of newsletters available. You can sign up for those by visiting townnews.com, clicking the news link at the top of the page, and then there's a sidebar that says Stay Connected that offers all of our newsletter options. You can sign up there. Anyway, thanks again to everyone who joined us, and thanks again, Christine and Rich, for walking us through. And we will see you guys next month. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.